I've previously done videos on groups, components, layers, and scenes. And this time what we're going to do is show you how to put all of that together so that you can produce working drawings that you can take out into the workshop. And we're going to do that using the tea light stand that sometimes gets built. And what you see in front of you is a tea light with 7 parts. And these are comprised of 3 different components. I have my spine, which is one component. I have 1, 2, 3 ribs, and I have 1, 2, 3 candle squares. And this is the overall 3-dimensional view of what this tea light stand looks like. And you'll see at the very beginning I clicked up here to get 3D. What you're seeing here is a scene. So I'm going to work in reverse and show you what scenes I want. We'll show you how I get it in Sketchup, and then I'm going to show you how I take it out of Sketchup and into a drawing that I can print and that means something and I can hand up as part of a folio. So the scene I have here, as I say, is the 3-dimensional scene. It has the spine, it has the 3 sets of ribs and candle squares. And what you'll see over here is an entity selection changes as I click. You'll see the layers, and you'll see here it's under scenes. I have 4 scenes defined: 3D, spine, rib, and square, the candle square. And you'll see that in these tabs: 3D, spine, rib, and square. Now these drawings that you see represent the drawings that I'm going to be able to print and take out into the workshop. Question is, how do I get them? How do I include the detail that's here? On this one I have only 1 square. I can zoom out and show you that. The other 2 are not here. And in addition to the square, I have some dimensions. When I look at the rib, I have a very similar situation. I have only 1 rib shown, no others, and I have a number of dimensions. I also have this shown in 2-dimensional orthogonal view, and because of that I've shown my 3-dimensional view here, 3-dimensional depth there with a piece of text. I then have the spine. I only have 1 spine anyway, so it's not surprising that I only see 1, but again I have the spine, and then I have separately, I have dimensions. Now I point out those dimensions firstly because you need to print them, and secondly because they do not appear here on this drawing 3D view. Equally, the dimensions from the spine do not appear on the rib, ones for the rib do not appear on the spine. I only see what I need in each of these scenes. So the way I achieve this, and actually I'll start with the spine first because it's the easiest. I have to have a scene created called spine. For the scene, what I do is I create 2 separate layers. I have the layer here, which is turned on, called spine, and I have a layer here called Z spine. Now this Z spine is the additional information I have. Essentially, it's the dimensions in this case. The Z puts all of these layers at the end of the layer list, which means that I'm drawing using these layers, but I'm documenting or putting additional information using these Z layers at the end. You'll also notice I have layer 0 as visible. It must always be visible, and it must always be the active layer. We discussed that when we were drawing object groups and components. So I always have layer 0, I always have the spine, I always have the Z spine when I'm showing my spine layer. When I do rib, what you'll notice is that I go across and I show the rib, I show the Z rib, so I have my dimensions or information layer showing, and I have layer 0 again. And on the square, I have my layer 0, my square, and my Z square. You're getting the hang of this. So this object sits on square, all of the dimensions sit on Z square. Where things get a little bit different is when I come to the 3-dimensional shape. The thing is, I've only got 1 square and I've only got 1 rib shown. So my rib here, which is sitting on rib layer. So where are the other 2 squares and where are the other 2 ribs? Well, they're visible here in my 3-dimensional layer, 3D layer. And you'll see that the layers I have switched on, apart from layer 0, I have 3D, which I have for every scene. I have my layer, which is 3D. I have down here Z3D, which is the information. It's this here, and you can see Z3D. But I need to show the entire object. So I actually need to show the spine, which is on spine layer, and that is visible. I need to show the rib, which is on rib layer, and so rib is visible. I need to show the square, which is on square layer, and so square layer is visible. And what I have here is these extra two ribs and squares actually live on the 3D layer. So I'm putting one of each component type on a layer associated with that component, which then becomes a scene. So not so much spine, I only have one, but in the rib I have a component type called rib. I put one of those on rib layer, and I create a rib scene, and associated with the scene for rib I have an additional layer which gives me information in particular dimensions called Z-rib. But any duplicates of these components, so my duplicate ribs, I actually put only on my 3D layer. And then I have the ability to put an extra layer here with additional information that is not visible and in any other scene. I don't often have this, but if I do have a dimension or a bit of text, I have an information layer called the Z3D, and this text here lives on Z3D. All right, so what does that look like? I've created a little spreadsheet here which lays it all out. Pause the video if you like and have a look. What you can see here are the scenes that I have defined compared to the layers. So you can see the different layers that are visible, and that's the same as what you see here, that these are the layers visible when I have the scene, or when I click across the layers visible and the layers visible. On this spreadsheet here, I do not have layer 0. Layer 0 is always visible. Over here, what I have is the parts. So these are the different parts: the spine, the 3 ribs, the 3 squares, the component types: spine, rib, and square. And you can see which layers they exist on. So the spine exists on spine, and I have the Z spine visible, the information layer. Rib 1 appears on the rib layer, and I have the rib information layer associated with it. Actually, it's technically not here. It shouldn't be there. So I have spine appears on spine layer, rib 1 appears on rib layer, rib 2 and 3 appear on 3D layer. The square appears on square layer, square 2 and 3 appears on 3D layer. Okay, these parts appear on these layers. These layers here are information that are only associated with the scenes. So as I say, pause this screen and have a look at it, study it, make sure you understand it. But the end effect, when I've done my drawing correctly and I've created components and I've associated the components, that each component has its own layer, and then each component type has its own layer and its own scene and its own associated layer with information, I can produce a working drawing of each and every component that I need to go out into the workshop and manufacture. As I say, in this case, in the TI stand, only 3. So how do I then take these out and actually turn them into drawings? Well, I get it set up on the page the way I want it. You'll see that I've used Zoom Extent and I've filled my drawing. I've got my text visible. In the case of the spine here, what I've done is I've turned my camera to parallel so that I don't get the perspective view. I've enabled with this 12mm thick timber. I've got all the dimensions that I need. I've worked out what I want them to look like. Now what I need to do is export. So I go File, Export to 2D Graphic. What will come up with is here. I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to call this, now I'm going to pick JPEG. PNG does also work, but I'm going to call this T-Light 3D. And I'm going to save it. I can do the same for spine. So File, Export 2D graphic. So I'm on the desktop, T-Light, spine. And I'm going to do it for the other two as well. So there they are, my four images that I've exported: T-Light 3D, T-Light square, T-Light rib, and T-Light spine. Now what I need to do is to turn them into drawings that I can print. Sure, I could open this and I could print, but there are a couple of extra things that I want to add to this in order to present it as part of a folio. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go open a document I have. This is a Word document, and there's a table here that creates a drawing border. And this is called my A4 drawing border landscape file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to add my name in here. I'm going to add the class that I'm in. So 9 or year 10 or whatever year you're working at. So year. All right. I'm going to add, because this is a drawing about my T-Light, and I don't know which one it is yet. I'm going to use the same one. The scale, I'm going to go and add not to scale. I cannot work with a scale. I will not be able to come with a ruler and measure it off the ruler and then multiply it by some factor and come up with a full-size drawing. This drawing is not to scale. It relies on the dimensions being correct, and the date, of course, you're going to enter as well. So now I have a file ready to go. I have 4 drawings to produce though. So I'm going to select the table and I'm going to copy that table. I'm going to come down here and enter to get me onto a new page, and I'm going to paste the table. I'm going to enter, I'm going to hit paste, I'm going to enter, I'm going to hit paste. And now I have a 4-page document. So this one here, starting from the bottom, is going to be the square. Alright, this one here is going to be the rib. This one here is going to be the spine. And this one here is going to be the 3, 3, 3. Let's call it that. So now I have my 4 different drawing borders open with the title block sorted out. So all I need to do is insert an image, a picture. That's got to go from desktop. And I'm going to take T-Light 3D. Do the same again. Insert pictures from into the spine. Insert picture. We're going to put in the rib. And insert picture. And we're going to put in the square. And there we have it. And that creates 4 drawings that you're able to print, complete with drawing border, title block, everything you need. Yes, looking at this one, you may need to just do this a little bit to take it off the bottom line. Look at the space. This one's okay. This one's okay. It's actually very big. You may choose to make it roughly the same size as this, which would mean reducing this. And it would also mean home and centering it. And you would want to center it vertically as well, using the table properties. The problem with doing that is you can see that the weight of the line has changed. And so if you wanted to do something like that, you would be better actually going to the rib here and putting your cursor there and zooming out till it is about the same size. Let me just update this before I move away. And so it's about the same height as the spine. That looks about right. And that way, if we exported it and brought it into the document, it would be a similar looking drawing or a similar scale to the spine over here. But that's the basic idea of how we take a drawing and turn it into working drawings. Take a SketchUp on and turn it into working drawings. Just to review, what I have to do is I have to decide which scenes I wish to produce. I'm basically going to have one of the entire object and one scene for each component that I'm going to do a drawing of. I am then going to create layers that match these scenes. At the very least, I should have a layer per scene and a second layer per scene that contains the information. I'm going to allocate shapes or components to these layers so that I have one component of each type on the actual component layers, and all the duplicates sit on the three-dimensional layer. These information layers contain dimensions, text, anything else that is visible only when that layer is visible. So the other scenes may have objects from various layers visible at one time. So just as the 3D scene has objects from a number of layers visible at one time. And I'm going to make sure that I do actually allocate each of these instances of these components to the correct layers to make them work. And I'm going to make sure that when I do this, my dimensions are allocated or pushed off to the correct layer in order to make it work. And that's where it comes to. A little bit of planning from the beginning, working backwards, allows you to then work forwards as you go through and create your components. That you can, as you create your components, you can already start creating the layers in preparation for creating the scenes. I might have said that it's easier to have all your layers created before you create your scenes, because otherwise you've got to set which layers are visible and update. If you add a layer, it adds it to every scene, and you've actually got to go back and take it out afterwards. So I hope that helps. I hope that means that you will be delivering good quality working drawings that are neatly and well presented in a drawing border with all of your name, year, class, a title block, a scale, and a date added to it. This is certainly the standard that I am expecting. Thank you very much.